Hey there, wake up. It's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. on the East Coast, I'm the newsman Sam Sachs. It's the Friday show, and I'd loosen my tie to relax a little, but then my head would fall off. And it appears Israel has found a new way to violate international law, attacking UN peacekeepers. According to the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, or UNIFIL, which is a peacekeeping contingent deployed to the area, their troops have come under attack repeatedly by Israeli defense forces. The incidents were described in a thread on Twitter this week. Quote, "This morning, 2 peacekeepers were injured after an IDF Merkava tank fired its weapon toward an observation tower at UNIFIL's headquarters in Nakora, directly hitting it and causing them to fall. The injuries are fortunately this time not serious, but they remain in hospital." UNIFIL also cited incidents in which IDF soldiers shot out perimeter monitoring cameras and attacked the entrance of a bunker, damaging a communication system and vehicles. UNIFIL said, quote, "Any deliberate attack on peacekeepers is a grave violation of international humanitarian law and of Security Council Resolution 1701. We are following up with the IDF on these matters." Shortly after that message was posted, there was news of yet another IDF attack on UNIFIL positions. There are about 10,000 UNIFIL soldiers stationed along the Israel-Lebanon border on a peacekeeping mission authorized by the UN Security Council at the end of the Israeli-Lebanon war back in 2006. More than 50 countries contribute soldiers to that peacekeeping force. They have the authority to be there. Israel does not. The Israeli military called on the peacekeeping force to evacuate last week in order to carry out an invasion of Lebanon. Some UNIFIL troops have been redeployed to larger, more secure bases in the area for their own safety, but the force's spokesperson said that they are not leaving. Meanwhile, the UN produced a new report this week finding Israel guilty of mass human rights violations. After an extensive investigation, the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory concluded that Israel's attacks on Gaza's healthcare system are illegal under international law. Reading from the report, quote, "The commission finds that Israel has implemented a concerted policy to destroy the healthcare system of Gaza. Israeli security forces have deliberately killed, wounded, arrested, detained, mistreated, and tortured medical personnel in targeted medical vehicles, constituting the war crimes of willful killing and mistreatment and the crime against humanity of extermination." The commission made more than a dozen recommendations to Israel, including calling for the government to end its occupation of Palestinian lands, cease targeting medical facilities, end the siege, and end arbitrary, unlawful, and torturous detention. Recommendations were also made to other UN member states to cease aiding and assisting Israel's crimes and to pursue accountability measures against perpetrators. The commission is clearly referring to the United States here. They're talking specifically about you, Joe Biden. Keep it up, and your post-presidency travel plans will be restricted only to countries that are not signatories of the International Criminal Court. A new Senate report accused the FBI of engaging in a cover-up with the Trump White House to put an alleged sexual abuser on the Supreme Court for life. This, of course, involves the confirmation of Justice Brett Kavanaugh back in 2018. Amid those proceedings, a number of credible allegations of sexual assault and harassment were made against Kavanaugh, including one from Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, a professor at Palo Alto University, who said Kavanaugh drunkenly assaulted her during a party in high school. Another allegation came from Deborah Ramirez, a classmate of Kavanaugh's at Yale, who said he exposed himself to her. Those charges prompted a second Senate confirmation hearing in which a blubbering Kavanaugh lashed out at senators, defended his beer drinking, and denied the accusations, even though his own meticulous schedule keeping as a high school student appeared to corroborate Dr. Blasey Ford's story. Afraid that their nominee was about to get sunk, Republican senators agreed to have the FBI investigate the matter, not criminally, but as part of a supplemental background check into Kavanaugh. A week later, the Bureau said it had conducted its review and found no corroborating evidence to support the allegations against Kavanaugh. And that gave Republican senators who were on the fence the cover they needed to confirm Kavanaugh to the highest court in the land. But now, Democrats are out with a new report showing that the FBI investigation was a sham orchestrated by the White House. The report was produced by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who said it took 6 years to compile due to persistent stonewalling by the FBI during both the Trump and Biden administrations. But ultimately, the report concludes that, quote, the Senate's reliance on the FBI's supplemental background investigation to inform its constitutional duty to provide advice and consent on Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court was misplaced. And it was misplaced because the FBI actually never investigated Kavanaugh. The Bureau never interviewed him, nor his accusers, nor the number of people his accusers put forward as corroborating witnesses. Quote, the Trump White House exercised total control over the scope of the investigation, preventing the FBI from interviewing relevant witnesses and following up on tips. The White House refused to authorize basic investigatory steps that might have uncovered information corroborating the allegations. The FBI boasted that it established a tip line as part of the probe just to prove how thorough it was. But all the tips the Bureau received, thousands of them, it just handed over to the White House to look into rather than investigate itself. Quote, on instructions from the White House, the FBI did not investigate thousands of tips that came in through the FBI's tip line. Instead, all tips related to Kavanaugh were forwarded to the White House without investigation. And here's the key part. Quote, if anything, the White House may have used the tip line to steer FBI investigators away from derogatory or damaging information. Since joining the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh has signed on to several decisions remaking American society, from striking down a federal right to abortion to deconstructing the administrative state. Coincidentally, he allied with Justice Clarence Thomas on those cases, another jurist who is credibly accused of sexual deviancy, but was confirmed anyway. What a wretched institution that should be razed to the ground. Figuratively, of course. Unless... Here's a story out of Canada where the government made a shocking legal argument in court this week, trying to fight off a national class action lawsuit brought by scores of First Nations. Lawyers for Canada's Department of Justice claim that the government has no legal obligation to ensure Indigenous communities have clean water. Quote, Canada does not owe any legal obligations or duties to operate and maintain the plaintiffs' water systems. Instead, the lawyers claim that the government will support water deliveries to First Nations as a matter of good policy only. which they're not even doing because for years, and in some cases decades, First Nations have lived under boil water advisories due to a lack of access to clean water, plus failing infrastructure and nearby pollution. The Neskantaga First Nation in Ontario have been boiling their water for 29 years, and the unsanitary water has led to skin diseases and GI issues among the population. People are afraid to shower. And again, this has been going on for 29 years. Class action lawsuit was signed on to by 59 First Nations. It's led by the Shamatatawa First Nation in Manitoba, who haven't had clean water since 2018. Lawyers say it's a human rights crisis, and the United Nations agrees. Oral arguments wrapped up in the case this week, and a judge is now considering it. A previous lawsuit brought by First Nations against the government over lack of access to clean water was settled out of court in 2021 for $8 billion. It entitled 142,000 individuals from 258 First Nations to be compensated. When Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister in 2015, he promised to lift all boil water advisories on First Nation reserves, but nearly 10 years later, that hasn't happened. By the way, thanks to Gormances on Twitter for bringing this story to our attention. And if there's something you'd like to see us cover on MMN, just do what they did and post at me on Twitter. All right, gang, we're nearing the end of the show. I can smell the weekend. But first, you know what we have to do. Thanks for all the nominations on the Means TV message board. But ultimately, this week's Rich Dick is Congressman Ro Khanna. The California Democrat gets the dishonors this week for putting forward the most pathetic defense of Elon Musk I've ever heard. Here was Khanna on CNN.
I think where the Democrats started to lose Elon was actually personal. We should have celebrated his contributions to electric vehicles, even though he was against unionization and stood up to unions. We should have said, look, Starlink, great product. That needs to be used. We should celebrate the fact that he's had the first commercial success of private people in space. But I think with the Democrats, remember, he was a supporter of Obama. Bill Clinton, Obama had this. And we are the party that is John F. Kennedy, that is about innovation, that is about entrepreneurship.
They didn't initially give him the tax credit.
We should be celebrating that part of it.
Damn, I hope he sees all that, Ro. No, but for real, what in the hell are you talking about, man? First off, Democrats have been shedding working class support in each successive election, threatening their long-term viability as a party, and particularly their chances of winning next month. And yet, here's Khanna lamenting the lack of support, not from workers, but from the richest man in the world and a serial union buster. Just waves away rampant violations of labor law by Elon Musk like it's nothing. And why exactly should we celebrate Musk's contributions to electric vehicles when the product he's put on the road is exceedingly dangerous? Tesla has the highest accident rate of any car model, and that's partly because Musk is using all of us as beta testers for technology that's not ready yet and shouldn't even be allowed on the road. That's not deserving of praise. And as for Starlink, which Khanna says is a, quote, great product that needs to be used, he's plugging something that Musk is currently using to prey on hurricane victims. Last week, Musk claimed that all Starlink terminals would work for free for victims of Hurricane Helene. But as the Register reported, it's not actually entirely free. It's 1 month of no charge, after which people who signed up are roped into a contract paying Starlink $120 a month. Also, people have to buy the actual dish, which is $350, and it takes several weeks for it to be delivered, so by the time hurricane victims receive their Starlink, it's likely their internet is back up and running again, and they don't need it. So, thanks for nothing, Elon. In addition to all of that, Musk is just a racist transphobe, so transphobic in fact that he's disowned his own trans daughter. He's repeatedly used his account on Twitter to spread lies about immigrants and the Great Replacement theory. He's played footsie with Nazis multiple times. He's just a stooge from apartheid South Africa. So why the hell is Ro Khanna going out of his way to lament that Musk is not on the side of Democrats? Well, it probably has something to do with Khanna being one of the wealthiest members of Congress. He also happens to be one of the most prolific stock traders on the Hill, despite his stealth styling as a progressive. According to Open Secrets, Khanna ranks in the top 25 richest lawmakers, valued at over $45 million. And at the end of the day, people like Khanna will always relate more to people like Elon Musk than people like you and me. It's called ruling class solidarity, and by showing it, Ro Khanna has secured his place as this week's rich dick. All right, friends, the show ends this morning with a sunrise from Michigan. It was sent in by Samuel in Brighton. Enjoy. Thank you, Samuel. That's the show. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the team behind the scenes. Please sign up for Means TV, subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels, and follow us on social media. One day, capitalism will fall. Until then, we're going to be right here. See you next week.